Come with me to the Met in New York to meet their collection of recorders. I was recently in Brooklyn to play a series of concerts in the Next Wave Festival, so of course I had to pop over to the Upper East Side, as I'd heard there were some pretty interesting instruments at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I had the best day nerding out there, so let me take you with me. Their hall of instruments is vast, and as I walked into this hall, this was the first one I saw, a Bassano tenor. A real Bassano! If you don't know the Bassano family, they were an eminent musical family of the 16th into the 17th centuries, composing, building instruments, writing treatises. They were active in Venice and later in London, and in fact, some of the Bassanos were part of King Henry VIII's court in the 1530s. This definitely would have fed into the king's famous love of recorders. This recorder felt really special to me as, look, the consort tenor that I play on is very similar to it. When we play consort recorders, they are copies of historical instruments, bassanos. This one, in fact, isn't a bassano, it's a schnitzer, but it's similar enough that it feels very familiar. So to see an original recorder that is the sound ideal, something I have been trying to emulate for so long, this was an emotional moment. Moment of appreciation for this nursing mother rattle from as early as 100 BC Mexico. Coolest thing in the world. Off to the next case of recorders, 4 to be exact, and I was so excited I got a random passerby to stop and take a very enthusiastic photo of me. So we have a soprano, alto, tenor and bass, all from the 18th century. Don't they look like new? This bass is super cool. It's from around 1700, Nuremberg, made by Johann Schnell. It's a fruit wood with a bass crook. Schnell isn't a name we hear a lot, like your Denners or Bressans or Stainsbys, because we don't see so many instruments as copies of his. He was in fact a contemporary of Denner, very famous, and worked with him in Nuremberg. They were both granted the right to make French instruments, especially oboes and recorders. Good for them. He has 4 surviving bass recorders. So, Johann Schnell, commit that name to memory. The tenor is 18th century German, but the museum doesn't know anything about it. Who it's by, even the wood. That's ivory and a brass key that you see on there too. I wish I could tell you more. The key work looks like a bit like the key on my tenor 4th flute by Luca de Paulus, which is cool. The alto is a stained boxwood and ivory alto by the English maker Joseph Bradbury. Again, a less common name. Other instruments of his survive. There is a voice flute house in Scotland, and the American maker Jerry Leatherman makes a copy of Bradbury's voice flute. I met Jerry in Portland and again in London this year at the International Early Music Festival, so definitely go and check his instruments out. The soprano, it's Dutch, by Thomas Boekhout, who hailed from Kampen, a rather uninteresting little town in the middle of the country. Sorry, people from Kampen. He worked in Amsterdam on the Kerkstraat and made oboes as well as recorders, including bass recorders, and he was part of a long tradition. He learned recorder making from his father-in-law, Jan de Jager, and then he later taught Jan de Jager's son, Frederik, who would have been his brother-in-law, right? And then he taught his own son, Jan Boekhout. So it was a family business, just like the Bassanos, like the Otterders, and more. This recorder is in ebony and ivory, and there is a similar recorder by Boekhout, an alto, in the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam. Before we get to the last recorder, a moment of appreciation for some other instruments. This ivory and silver late Roman tibia, this argillite and ivory duck flute from the Haida people of what is now Western Canada from the 19th century, with these beautiful figures carved onto it. And this one is my favourite. A 19th century whistle from either the Mossi or Gurunsi people of Burkina Faso. It's wood, in the shape of a person, and the holes you play on are actually at the ends of this figure's elbows. How amazing is that? On to our final recorder, a stunning ivory alto elaborately carved by Johann Benedict Gahn of Nuremberg. I bet he was friends with Johann Schnell, who made the bass recorder you saw. Apparently, the carvings, this mask and the leaves featured were typical of Nuremberg at the time. In fact, two of the recorders in the museum at the Royal College of Music, where I'm a professor, are also from Nuremberg makers. I just want to say at this point, when I posted the 18th century Ivory recorder on Facebook, it got quite a lot of backlash. People were saying, destroy it because it's ivory. Now, I hear you, and I would never consider buying or commissioning an ivory instrument today. Obviously, the practice is abhorrent, but these are historical artifacts, hundreds of years old. I don't think we should destroy them simply because we wouldn't recreate them today. I think these instruments should be studied and preserved so that we can learn from them. What do you think? And finally, I know from the research that the museum is doing at the Royal College that ivory is actually a terrible material to make wind instruments with. It does not weather well. It cracks. These recorders are full of fissures. So let's just use wood, shall we? Phew, that was a lot of instruments. I hope you've enjoyed coming on this journey with me. If you're in New York, do go to the Met and check the recorders out. There are more in their collection, so you might see something different. Finally, I want to shout out to the New York Recorder Guild. I actually made this trip to the Met because I saw that they had been on Facebook, so consider me influenced. And I also want to say thank you to all of the New York recorder players who came to my concerts when I was there. I really appreciated it, and it was lovely to meet you. As always, you can subscribe to my channel by clicking on my face here in the corner. If you want to support Team Recorder, you can join our Patreon, and we're heading up to our 10-year anniversary, so there's some special stuff coming up. And here's some more videos. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Bye.